Alright, guys, let's talk about the coronavirus outbreak that seems to have everybody freaking out everywhere. Um, Today marks the third full day that I am unofficially quarantined, and what I mean by that is somebody at my niece and nephew's daycare, a parent, I'm pretty sure, went to go get tested for COVID-19 or coronavirus, and the results still are not back yet. Now, if a parent at the daycare has it, and they give it to their kid, and their kid gives it to my niece and nephew, my niece and nephew come here several days a week to be watched. That gives the potential for me and my family to have this virus. Now, the incubation period, it varies. So, I mean, you could have it for like, I think they said 14 days and not even show symptoms. But it could be as little as just a couple days. So, so far, nobody seems to show any symptoms, and so far the results have not come back. They said it could be at least until Tuesday before the results come back, but they could come back at any time. But so far, nothing. So I'm at home. My mom's working from home. My dad, for whatever reason, feels the need to go out and work. He works in the pool business, so he doesn't really deal with people, but still, he's out there at gas pumps and stuff. You know, potentially, if he doesn't have it, he could be potentially getting and bringing back to us, which, in my opinion, is stupid, because pool service is not an essential. It's not an essential business to be open, and in my opinion, they need to close. But they haven't. But anyway, what I want to talk about is the fact that this is like people are comparing this to different diseases and different things that have happened over the course of time. People praising Trump or bashing Trump, or praising Obama and bashing Obama for the different measures that were taken in different things throughout their presidencies. And the thing is, with Ebola, that was much more easily controlled. It was a bad disease, but it was much more easily controlled because it originated in Africa. Not a whole lot of people go to Africa, and I'm pretty sure it was in the poorer portions of Africa, and so it had a much the likelihood that it was going to spread was much less than this virus, which, by the way, this virus started in China, for those of you who don't know, but I'm sure most of you do know. Started in China. They tried to hide it from us, and now it's spread throughout the world. So that's one reason why it is so far spread out throughout the world, but also because it's just so contagious. I believe they said it's about twice as contagious as the flu. The virus, it stays on certain materials for so long, and it's just a very, very contagious virus. Now, it does have a very high survival rate, but that doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't take it seriously, because people who are at risk are elderly people over like 60, 65. They're at a high risk, especially if you're like in your 80s. People who have heart problems, lung problems, people who have asthma, people who are undergoing cancer treatments, weakened immune systems. In my girlfriend's case, diabetes. If you have diabetes, what I've read is that if you maintain your diabetes properly, and you're able to keep a good blood sugar level, then you have about the same amount of risk as a normal person. But if you have severe diabetes, if it's less easy to control, then you're at higher risk. And then there's just other other things that put you at higher risk, and the fact that since this disease is so it's so widespread and it spreads so easily now that the hospitals are filling up, and it leaves less room for other patients of other things, heart attacks, strokes, asthma attacks, all these different things that normally there would be plenty of space. There's going to be a lot less space, and just the less space you have for patients coming in, the higher chances are of people dying. Like, I think the last I read is in the United States anyway, the number was somewhere around 36,000 current cases, and of those roughly 36,000, close to half of them were just in New York alone, most of them being New York City, of course, because it's such a huge population. But then there's California, and then Washington. I think those are the three biggest states, and the president has supposedly already sent the National Guard to those three states and is sending masks and other PPE to those states, along with like FEMA tents and beds, and supposedly a ship, like a medical ship, was sent to LA. So all these things are going to help, and that kind of brings me to another point, is that this virus is kind of our generation. So I'm a millennial, Generation Y. At the end of the millennial generation, but Generation Y and Generation Z. It's kind of our version of what, like pre-baby boomers, what their generation's World War II was. And what do I mean by that? Well, obviously we're not at war with each other, but the world is at war with an enemy. Everybody's fighting the same enemy. And there's also that need for specific supplies. So in World War II, you had all these different companies, car companies, car manufacturers, typewriter manufacturers, jukebox manufacturers, all these companies making guns and ammunition and jeeps and trucks and all these different things that were needed for the war effort. Today, we have car manufacturers starting to make respirators. You have different companies that have like 3D printers, like say Apple, or I don't remember what the other one was, but there were a couple different ones that they named on the news this morning. They're producing masks and face shields and other PPE. You have people with sewing machines. They put these plans for face masks for people to sew masks and donate them to hospitals. And so you have all these different men and women all over the United States sewing face masks for the hospitals. I'm not really sure what the current news is of this, but I heard the president in one of his press conferences saying that like Carnival Cruise Lines was going to bring in ships along the coastal states and do offshore hospitals. I may have heard that wrong, but I'm not really sure what's currently going on with that. You have Anheuser-Busch producing hand sanitizer, the stopping production of their normal goods and changing gears to produce other things that will help with the effort. So all of these things are good things. Obviously it's going to take some time. My sister's a pharmacist. Actually, my sister and my brother-in-law are pharmacists, so they're kind of seeing this head on in a way, not so much as like nurses and doctors, which, by the way, from what I hear, anybody who was close to graduating in the nursing degree is being put into the workforce is ASAP, and I'm assuming doctors as well are being put into the workforce ASAP because they're needed. But according to my sister, there's a drug out there that if you are sick, it's supposed to help contain the spread. I'm hearing this like second hand or third hand. My dad talks to my sister, my dad tells it to us. So I don't know all of the details on that, but that's what I hear. I've also heard that they're supposedly coming out with a test that brings back results faster, like within 45 minutes, as opposed to like 4 or 5 days. If that's true, that is definitely something that is good, because faster response times, or well, faster results equals faster response times equals more potential lives saved. So all these things are good things, and of course there are, some bad decisions being made too, and certain governors, certain mayors, some people don't take it as seriously as others, and that's a shame, because that means that the spread could potentially be faster than it needs to be. You have all these idiots, spring breakers, partying on the beaches still, which some beaches are closed, but apparently not all of them, and all these young people, they just don't care. But what they don't understand is, if you get sick and you're young and you're healthy, you'll probably live. Like, I'll probably live if I get it. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'll probably live. But if you give it to somebody else, like your grandmother or your grandfather, or your little cousin who has cystic fibrosis, or your brother who has asthma, all these people who are at risk, and you get it, you're healthy, and you have a higher potential of surviving, but these people do not. And what all these people do not understand is that this spread just makes more people sick and more people die. And if the hospitals are full, then it brings that possibility up higher. The possibility of dying for these people in the hospitals, it brings it up higher. Which again is why all these different companies and individuals are pitching in and trying to help with the effort. Let me see this. Okay, looks like it's still recording. My camera's kind of stupid sometimes. Let's see. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? So, what can you do? Obviously, if you can stay home, stay home. A lot of places they have like shelter in place, which means unless you have a reason to go outside, like to get food, to go to the hospital, or go to the pharmacy, whatever, you should stay at home. If you can work from home, you should. Supposedly the government's working on coming up with like a financial plan to help people, but so far, obviously Democrats and Republicans, they can't get together, they can't cooperate, and that is not what we need right now. We need Democrats and Republicans, they need to work together, for the American people. And if you can figure out which one of these, all these different people in Congress that are not cooperating, just remember that whenever it comes time to vote, whenever that is, because we don't know right now, just remember that when it comes time to vote those individuals out of office, because they didn't help the American people. So just remember that. And I can't stand all these like some of these YouTubers that I follow on Facebook and on YouTube, and they're like freaking out over martial law and all these other things, and they're saying that this is taking away our constitutional rights. But what people don't understand is that this is something that's never happened before, not the way it's happening right now. And yes, some rights are being temporarily taken away, but this is also a national emergency. This is a state of emergency to a scale that we've never seen before. It's not a natural disaster where it only hit a certain portion of the country. This is affecting the entire world, and the best thing to do is just cooperate. Now, California has basically shut down, and different states like New York are basically shut down. I mean, not fully. I'm not sure if the borders are actually shut or what, but like Illinois, the governor of Illinois said that, excuse me, the governor of Illinois said that gun shops are an essential thing to have. So the gun shops are open, even though like all these other things, like the gyms and the hair salons and the nail salons, they're all closed, but the gun shops are still open, at least in that state, where he said that gun shops are an essential thing to have. So things that you should have, obviously food and water for sure. you definitely want food and water. Medicine, you want Tylenol and vitamin C and anything else that could help with being sick. Now, do not take ibuprofen. Do not take Aleve. Do not take aspirin. And there were a couple other ones that I don't remember, but supposedly some of these different medicines, they're like grouped in a certain category that actually makes the disease worse. So just be mindful of that. I would look that up and make sure. But for sure, I know that Tylenol is a good one to take. Obviously, it'll help with fever and vitamin C. I like to get vitamin C from fruit juices and stuff like that. But just be mindful of what medicines are good to take and which medicines are not good to take. So that's an important thing. And then obviously you want guns and ammunition. Now, I usually keep 2 guns loaded for home defense. I currently have like about 6 loaded. The closest one in reach is my M1 carbine. I have this one loaded. I also have an AR and a shotgun and a few handguns loaded as well. And the reason that is important is if it ever gets to the point where everything does close and then people start to freak out and people start to loot and riot, you want to have guns and ammunition and other weapons to protect what you have. I have a lot of guns and a lot of different calibers and a lot of ammunition in those different calibers. I can have every gun, every magazine loaded, and then some. So I have plenty. We have plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of medicine, plenty of guns and ammunition. So I think we are pretty good if it ever comes to that. And of course, we're going to the store, which I don't necessarily agree with. But if you go to the store, be careful, keep your distance. If you have hand sanitizer, use it. Use your hand sanitizer at gas pumps, or use gloves if you have them, or use paper towels to grab the gas pumps, because gas pumps are a very high, it's very likely that you could contract it from a gas pump because the disease or the virus stays on like plastic and metal for a couple of days. And a lot of people use gas pumps. A lot of travelers traveling from place to place, state to state, use gas pumps, and that is a very high risk area. So just be mindful of that. What else? I feel like I was going to say something else. If you want to know the symptoms, most cases are mild, but if it's anything more than mild, you have a high chance of needing oxygen and respirators, which are obviously running low right now. Cough, dry cough, fever of at least 100.4, or probably higher than that. But if you have a dry cough or a fever, those are 2 big things. Sore throat, which probably comes from the cough. Shortness of breath. Runny nose is like not one that's like common, but it is one that can be a symptom. And then there's a few other symptoms, and obviously pneumonia for severe cases. So those are the symptoms, at least all the symptoms that I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's a few more that some cases have and other cases do not, but those are like the main ones. Let's see, anything else? I don't think there's anything else that I need to talk about. Obviously, be safe out there. Wash your hands regularly. Be mindful of what you're touching, and if you touch something that could be infected, wash your hands, or use hand sanitizer if you have it. Use gloves if you have them. If you have N95 masks, you could use them when you go out, but I think they're only really good for one use, so be mindful of that. And also be mindful that the hospitals don't have enough masks, all the masks that they need. I'm trying to think what else. I keep forgetting what I talked about too. Keep your distance, keep 6 foot of distance at least. Don't go to your neighbor's house and be social and hugging on your neighbors and everything. Stay home if at all possible. At work, keep your distance. Make sure you clean things that are touched regularly. If you work in the retail industry, I pray for you because that is a very dangerous place, and the retail, the grocery industry, the hospital, obviously. If you work in a vet's office like my girlfriend does, I said my girlfriend is at a fairly higher risk than a normal person. I fear for her every day, and I hope that they're taking all the necessary precautions, because supposedly somebody came in with symptoms. They don't know if it's coronavirus. They haven't gotten tested, I don't think. So I don't really know all the details on that, but I hope that she and everybody there is taking all the precautions so that more people do not get sick. And of course, hospitals and pet hospitals, they're restricting who can come in and who can't. They have to test you and do different things, and visitors are not allowed in, and all these different things. I know some people are freaking out and thinking that this is BS and it shouldn't be this way, but this is to prevent the spread from going up, because as you can see, the numbers are going up, and they're going to go up for a while. I can guarantee you that. They'll fluctuate, and they may go down one day, they may go up one day, but eventually, after all this is passed, and people actually start to listen and do things the way that they should, the numbers will start to go down, and then eventually, things will start to go back to normal, as in China, like in Korea, and all these different countries that have had it for a long time. It'll eventually go back to normal. It's not fully back to normal over there, but it is getting close. And it took a while, and it's going to take a while here. So everybody just stay calm, do all the necessary precautions, wash your hands, just keep your distance, all these different things. Be mindful of what medicines you should and shouldn't take, and just be safe out there. So that's pretty much all I have to say. This is a very long video, one of the longest I've ever made, but I just wanted to talk about it because this is real, this is now, and this is happening, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it until it's over. So anyway, subscribe to my channel, like me on Facebook. I'm Redneck Mini 14, and until next time, be safe.